Hello everybody, welcome to Lenny D Draws. I'm Lenny. Today I'm going to be teaching you 5 steps into practicing art and how you can get better at it. That's all I'm going to be doing today. I hope you enjoy the video. So practicing art, hearing it as a beginner is scary because you hear it everywhere. You gotta practice. And yes, practice is very important, but it's not as stressful as you might think it would be at the beginning. So I came up with 5 different ways to help you. So step 1 is find out what you want to learn. So practicing art is a very broad term. The art you want to practice, you should find out what it is specifically that you want to practice. My example for this would be female anatomy. So let's say you want to learn female anatomy, right? That's step 1. Step 1's already complete. You already know what you want to draw. And it doesn't have to be female anatomy, obviously. It can be anything. You can try to learn to draw hands, you can learn backgrounds, items, anything. Like, step 1 can be anything you want it to be. Step 2 is using references. If you're going to practice and you're going to study something, you need to use references. My example of the references are going to be these lovely ladies right here. And I'm going to show you how you can use references in your drawings. When you learn something, you need to learn different kinds of the same thing. I don't know if that makes any sense, but an example of this would be female anatomy. Not everybody's body is the exact same. So like this girl and this girl, they have 2 completely different body types. So when you want to practice something, you want to practice different kinds of it. So when you study with reference, you really have to make sure you're paying attention to how everything interacts with each other. So like how long the arms are compared to where the crotch stops, or the belly button, or the way the shoulders are tilted compared to how the hips are tilted. It's just all those things. Using references is very, very important in practice. Not just anatomy, just in life and just everything. Me showing you this is just showing you examples of practicing with references. It isn't as hard as one might think, but I guess as a beginner it can definitely seem very hard. But the more you practice, the whole point of this video, repetition, the more you practice, the better you will get. And it does not need to be photorealistic. It does not need to be perfect. Practice does not need to be perfect at all. Practice is just, a lot of the times when you first start, you won't understand and you'll mess up and it'll look wonky and weird, but the more you do it, the better it'll look. Using references, you have to actually look at the reference when you're drawing. You can't just take a look at it, assume you know where everything is, and just focus on your picture the whole time. You gotta measure and make sure you're doing everything right and make sure everything's in the right spot. This is not by any means perfect. I know that. I drew it in like 5 minutes. But when you practice something over and over again, when you practice using reference, if I were to try to draw this without reference, it probably wouldn't have turned out as accurate. Maybe in some ways, because I know how female anatomy works. Let's just say I don't know how female anatomy works, and I've never drawn a female body in my life. If I were to try to draw this same thing, but without using reference, I guarantee it would look much worse. Okay, now compare this woman's body type to this woman's body type. They're very different. So when you practice different things, like say anatomy, you have to practice different kinds of anatomy. So people are all the rage about like OCs, right? Original characters. Having original characters can be so much more fun if you learn and practice different kinds of anatomy, or just different kinds of things. Not even, let's just get characters out of our head. Just people, gone. Drawing people, out the window. World builders and people who like to draw worlds or objects or anything, your story is going to be much more dynamic if you have different kinds of item. So let's say you're drawing like a kid's book and it's about teapots or something, or dishes, I guess. If you're drawing it about, if you're writing a story, a children's book, about plates or dishes, this is theoretical, obviously, but if you were to make that, And then all the dishes looked the same, and they all had the same patterns and all the same kinds of like shape of spoon. I don't know. But let's say you have that. It's gonna look very blank and boring because everything looks the same. You have like 10 spoons, they're all identical. You have 10 plates, they're all identical. But if you were to try to change things up, like different body types or fork types, any kind of thing, making things look different, practicing and using references of different things will make your art better. It'll make it more entertaining. My whole thing on this was basically just references help you learn. You don't have to use them all the time if you're not practicing. If you're just drawing for fun, you don't need a reference. But if you're going to practice and you want to expand your brain and learn more about different kinds of things, like anatomy or different plate types, using references will help you. And remember, your practice does not have to be pretty. If you're practicing, it can be hideous. It can be like the worst thing you've ever drawn ever. As long as you're practicing and learning from your mistakes, that's all that matters. So like, see how both of these, very sketchy, right? Very not rendered fully at all. And like, and some spots aren't even that great. That's okay. If you're learning and you're trying to figure things out, or you're having an off day, that's fine. Practicing does not need to be perfect. That's why it's practice makes perfect, not practice is perfect, you know? It's not going to be perfect the first time you draw something. It's not going to be perfect the millionth time you draw something. Everybody's learning all the time. And people make mistakes. Drawing does not need to be perfect. Especially when you're practicing. Especially. If you're practicing, it can be the worst thing ever. But as long as you learn from it, that's what really matters. See, this sucks, right? And so does this. They suck. But that doesn't mean I won't learn from it in the future. See, what I learned from this is that I gotta really pay attention more to the actual stance and the actual shape of her body and like where things are compared to each other. And in this one, I need to learn more about the same thing. That's just what I'm struggling with as of now. So practicing and going over this problem multiple times to see how I can get better will help me and will make me better. The next step is have fun. There's no way you can draw and continue to draw and learn if you're not having fun. If you're not having fun, you get put out immediately, you're not going to want to learn anymore, and then you'll stop, and then you'll get art block, and it'll just be this whole thing. Not having fun while drawing defeats the whole purpose of it. Art is fun, and it's meant to be fun. So if you don't have fun and you put too much pressure on yourself, it's going to take the fun out of it. Next, don't get discouraged. And this plays along with the have fun really well. So like, let's say you're practicing anatomy for the first time, female anatomy for the first time, and you suck at it. You're terrible. You're really bad. Discouraging yourself and seeing your art compared to other people will absolutely discourage you, and it won't be fun. So getting discouraged takes the fun out of it. So don't get discouraged, and you'll have fun. You gotta be your biggest fan. You have to be your biggest fan. You have to look at your art and be like, wow, I did that, and look at how far I've come. So where you are now is much better than where you were, let's say, like a few years ago, or like even last week. Some people grow very fast. So you gotta be your biggest fan. But with that being said, you do have to be your biggest critic. But you can't be one or the other. You have to be both. Because if you're your biggest fan, then you won't grow. But if you're your biggest critic, you'll get discouraged and you'll stop. So you really have to be both. Your biggest fan and your biggest critic. And then practice. That's the main thing. The main thing is practice. That's always been the main thing. From the start of it. How to practice art? Practice. It's really very self-explanatory. Practice sounds really easy in theory. Like just, I'll practice. Just do it over and over again. But you can't practice without knowing how to do it. So these steps should be able to help you. If you learn how to draw something specific, like female anatomy, and you keep practicing that, and you keep looking at references, and you keep getting better, and you'll have fun, and you'll feel encouraged to move on, and to move towards maybe even male anatomy, or maybe facial expressions, or something different. That's the point. Practicing a certain thing, finding what you want to practice first, finding it, and then getting good at it will encourage you to find another thing and get good at that thing. So practicing over and over again will help you. And that's not necessarily every single day, that's not necessarily every hour of your life. Practice when you can, and practice when it's accessible for you, and practice when you feel like practicing. Because if you don't feel like practicing and you feel like doing, I don't know, like taking a nap because you're tired, or like you've had a really long day at school and you just can't draw right now, you're not in that mindset, don't. That's okay. You can take breaks, but just you can't take too long of breaks, you know? Because then, I know it sounds kind of weird, but you will lose your skill over time. So like, let's say you draw something great, and then like, you don't draw for 5 years. You can still probably get, like, in your brain, you still know how things work, but your hand, the muscle memory is just gone. So you really need to practice as much as you can, as much as you are able, and as much as you are willing to. Try to do these things all the time, if you can. So like, find what you learn, find what you want to learn. If you find what you are passionate about in the moment, and be like, hey, I want to learn how to draw hands. I think hands look pretty nifty. I'd like to give those a shot. And do it. Find references on Pinterest, Instagram, Google. Like, just find pictures of hands. Use your own hand. Look at your own hand. Do different poses on your own hand. And then the end. It all comes down to this. Practice. It's really that easy. All you have to do is practice. Find what you want to learn. Use references. Have fun. Don't get discouraged. And then practice. Put what you've learned into practice. But really, it really is that easy. Who'd have thought, right? People tell you all the time. They're like, who'd have thought it'd be that easy? Yeah, so those are my 5 steps to helping you practice art. I hope you enjoyed. If you want to see more of me, more of what I do, or more of really anything here, you should subscribe. If you liked the video, you should like the video. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. Do great things. Practice what you want to learn, and you'll get great at it. I promise. See you next time. Goodbye.